Well, hello everyone and welcome to Race Week for the Midweek show, where today we will be reviewing what was a thrilling Italian Grand Prix, where obviously everyone knows what happened, where Pierre Gasly took his maiden win. It still feels unbelievable to actually be saying that Pierre Gasly won a race. And we will also be previewing Formula One's first ever appearance in Mugello. So, let's talk about it. And first, let's go in to the news. And there's been a fair bit of news in the past few days since the Italian Grand Prix. And the first bit of news came through yesterday when Sergio Perez announced that he has been dropped from the Racing Point team. He will not be driving for them next year. They'll obviously be known as Aston Martin next year. He will not be driving for the team next year, and I feel really bad for him. He has done so much for the team, and also a lot of things I have seen today indicate that most of the team wanted him to stay, but obviously he got a call from Lawrence Stroll out of nowhere, and then that about his dismissal. And this morning we saw the inevitable after that, where Sebastian Vettel will be joining the team for next year. This was news that we all saw coming as soon as Sergio announced his departure, and Sebastian Vettel will remain on the grid after weeks of speculation as to what he's going to do. Sebastian Vettel will remain on the grid. And obviously, this is quite a good move financially for the team, because Aston Martin's stock price has risen as a result of having a four-time world champion in the team. But it's really sad for Sergio Perez. It looked like his patience had paid off in this team, and that he was going to finally have his chance in a race-winning car. But unfortunately, he got dropped just before he got his opportunity. Let's hope he can find a place on the grid. But to be honest, I don't think that he will drive for Haas or Alfa Romeo. He said in his statement that he wants an opportunity where he has 100% motivation and that can further his career. And I don't see how Haas and Alfa Romeo could do that for him in the short term. Whilst elsewhere, Ferrari are running a special livery, and I think this is a great livery. This shade of red that Ferrari will be running this weekend to celebrate their 1,000th Grand Prix. To commemorate the colour. This is the colour, the shade of red that they used in their first Grand Prix. And I think this works. I think it looks very Ferrari, this shade of red. And a lot of people are wishing that would be their normal colour scheme. Of course, we had news about Renault will be renaming to Alpine for next year. Renault, this was announced on Sunday before the Italian Grand Prix, where Alpine, who are Renault's performance car brand, will be what the name of the team. It will still be Renault's works team, but that will be the brand that Renault are going to race as. Some are even talking about how Alpine could maybe become like Ferrari as a racing brand, but there's a long way to go before that. And elsewhere in other motorsports, Lewis Hamilton is starting an Extreme E team. He will be entering a team into the new Extreme E series, which is going to be essentially a rally series of electric cars. And this is a hint of what Lewis Hamilton might do post F1. As much as I am really enjoying seeing him in his prime, breaking all these records in Formula 1, I also am looking forward to seeing the sort of things that he is going to be doing after F1, because I think he is going to continue to be a regular presence in the paddock, and he will continue to do some very good things for Formula 1. So now it's time to analyse a few events. And the first obvious thing to analyse from Sunday is, how did it happen? How did Pierre Gasly win the race in a midfield car? This was the sort... For years during this hybrid era, many pundits have always been saying this sort of thing, midfield teams taking unexpected victories, is something that simply is not possible anymore, considering the advantage that the big teams have over the midfield teams. But we were presented with a rare opportunity for that, and a perfect storm of things, which included Valtteri Bottas's bad start, Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen's bad start, Mercedes' inability to follow other cars because they were designed to be out front, and Lewis Hamilton entering the pit lane when it was closed, meant there was a rare opportunity for a midfield team to win the race. And it was initially Lance Stroll, but he squandered in the lead, but he squandered up the restart, which allowed both Gasly and Sainz through. But then how did Gasly manage to fend off a much faster McLaren? Because whilst the AlphaTauri is a reasonable car, certainly one of their better cars, one of that team's better cars, the McLaren is very fast. Has a significant, we've seen, has quite an advantage over the AlphaTauri. But Pierre just managed it so well. He just pushed at the right points. And obviously Sainz got close on the last lap, but Gasly could he had a big gap, so he could afford to ease off the gas a little bit. And on that last lap, he just executed it perfectly. Conserved, made sure not to take any risks in the places of the track that he didn't need to take risks, but made sure that going into the overtaking zones, he was safe from attack from Carlos Sainz. And he managed that expertly. Sainz said one more lap he may have done it. I'm not sure he would have, because Gasly, he just had him covered. And that is why there were a few people saying that it was the luckiest win ever that Gasly took. But it's one thing lucking into that position. Yes, he did luck into this position, to being in the position that he was. But it was all down to him to hold it. And he managed to do that successfully. And you can't take that away from him. Which led to a really good result for him. And where does this... Now talking about today's announcement, where does this leave the driver market? And now there is a massive free agent in the form of Sergio Perez. So I do plan on doing a video talking about who could potentially go where in 2020, in the remaining 2021 seats. But firstly, but where could Perez go? What a lot of people on social media and everything are wanting is for Red Bull to finally realise that putting in young drivers into that second seat is not a good idea, and then to put an experienced driver such as Sergio Perez, who would, to be honest, probably be more up for that sort of a role, to be able to be in that car. I think he probably would be more able to do that than a young driver would, with experience on his side. But Red Bull have said no to that. And then the sad thing is, the only options that remain for him after that are Alfa Romeo and Haas. I think out of the two, Haas would probably be the most likely for him. Alfa Romeo are essentially a Ferrari junior team, and they probably would not want to put a driver that might fade in that car in there, especially after having Kimi in the car. But it's going to... So I'd say Haas is more likely, considering that he would also bring a bit of funding to the team as well. But it would just leave a sour taste if Sergio Perez had basically his chances of ever getting into a race-winning car ended by this whole thing. And a lot of people, understandably, feel really bad for him. So that is about the last weekend. Obviously, there we'll be talking about the moments of the week at the end of the episode. But now it's time to preview this weekend's race. Formula One makes its first appearance in Mugello. The Autodromo Internazionale del Mugello is set in the Scarperia e San Piero region of Tuscan in Italy, a hilly region that's 25 kilometres northeast of the city of Florence. The circuit itself was built in 1974, and whilst Formula One may never have raced there, it's no stranger to the Formula One paddock, having tested there on many occasions. The circuit is 5.245 kilometres in length, which means that the race will be held over 59 laps with a race distance of 309.455 kilometres. The track consists of 15 corners, which range from medium to high speed. Some of them will be amazing to watch a Formula One car in throughout the weekend, and will really bring out the best in the drivers and the cars. So, let's take you through a lap of this Mugello circuit. The pit straight is very long and is the only DRS zone on the track, and it's a long rundown to the first corner at San Donato, which will be the obvious overtaking place. You could see inside and outside passes around this long right-hander, then into the left-hander at Luco and into the right-hander at Poggio Secco, where the line is going to be crucial, then into the left-hander at Materassi. If you get the line wrong, you could lose a lot of time. Then into the right-hander at Borgo San Lorenzo. And this is where it's going to be amazing to watch a Formula 1 car. Materassi might be just flat, particularly in the front-running cars. Then into Borgo San Lorenzo, which should be easy flat. And then into the Arrabbiata corners, which is a double right-hander, which could be easy flat in the front-running cars. Then into the chicane at Scarperia and Palaggio, where the line is going to be crucial, otherwise you'll lose a lot of time on the exit. Then into the long right-hander of Correnteo, where you have to really hug the inside. Biandetti is a chicane which a Formula 1 car probably won't notice that much. And then up towards the final corner of Bucine, which is going to be absolutely crucial to get the line right to set up an overtake down the straight. Or if you've got a car behind you and you get it wrong, you could be really vulnerable to attack on the long back straight. And that is a lap around the very fast Mugello circuit. So going into this race, let's have a look at the drivers' standings going into this race. Lewis Hamilton now has still got a massive lead, despite his only finishing in 7th in the race in Monza. He still holds a 47-point lead back to Valtteri Bottas in 2nd. He looks he is very close to breaking Michael Schumacher's race win record. Max Verstappen is in 3rd in the standings, ahead of Lance Stroll and Lando Norris, who are level in 4th and 5th. Then you have Alex Albon in 6th, Charles Leclerc in 7th. Then you have Pierre Gasly, who moved up to 8th with his victory, with Sainz and Ricciardo level on points in 9th and 10th. Now, the thing to note about this circuit that I have to mention is the tyres. It is going to be a tyre eater, and I don't really see how it's going to be a one-stop strategy. There's so many long corners on this circuit, and particularly the left front, I believe, is going to take quite a bit of a beating around this circuit. The right front's also not going to have any easy runners either. But the left front is going to take quite a bit of a beating around this circuit. But obviously, as I mentioned as well, in the run, there could be quite a fair amount of overtaking on the pit straight, because also it's going to really depend on the exit you get on that last corner, whether you can overtake or defend, whether you can overtake or not, and whether you're passed or not. Because if you get a poor exit and you've got a car right behind, then you're going to be overtaken. But looking at the weather for this weekend, it's expected to be a very dry race as well. It's going to be very high temperatures. 31 degrees air temperature is expected on Sunday, and that surely is going to take its toll on the tyres. It's going to be a tough race for the drivers. Mark Webber said when F1 was announced to be going to Mugello that he basically said the drivers' heads are going to be dropping off by the end of the race because of how physical it is. And it's going to be one of the toughest races that the drivers have ever done. These temperatures and with these high lows, the G-forces that are going to be going through the driver around each corner, it's really going to take its toll on the drivers. 29 degrees track temperature is expected on Friday, with 30 degrees on Saturday and 31 degrees, or air temperature and 31 degrees on Sunday. But let's do a team-by-team review of going into this weekend's Tuscan Grand Prix. Still don't know how to pronounce that. In reverse constructors order. Not looking as bleak for them as it was last week, considering that this track's not going to expose the draggy nature of their car, which they said has cost them a bit for the past couple of races. And these higher downforce tracks, George Russell seems to thrive at. In a weekend where tyre management is expected to be key, I think Haas are going to really struggle, has to be said. Especially with the underpowered engine, obviously. But we know that Haas have a lot of issues with tyres in recent races. Can't help but feel it's going to be a struggle for them. Whilst Alfa Romeo don't have the same tyre issues that Haas have, the underpowered Ferrari engine is surely going to dog them quite a bit. So I don't really see how this is going to be any different this weekend to others. You can say that they have momentum on their side. We have seen in the past when a midfield team takes a victory, then they suddenly gain some momentum. And I wonder if that is going to help them this weekend with momentum. Because also this higher downforce track, the AlphaTauris seem to go fairly well around, as we've seen at tracks like Silverstone. So I think we should expect to see them firmly in the points this weekend. Thankfully for them, it's not a low downforce circuit, and it's an opportunity for Charles Leclerc to produce the performances that he did in both the races at Silverstone, as well as he could have done in Barcelona. He did in Hungary as well. Well, he didn't do in Hungary, as well as he could have done in Barcelona had it not been for his retirement, and he did in the first race in Austria. So Ferrari should be better here than they were in Spa and Monza, but still going to be nowhere near fighting for wins. Not really sure what this weekend's going to hold for them, because the fast circuits they seem to do reasonable at in the first race at Silverstone, and the high top speed that car has could help them on the straight to do some overtakes. I'm expecting a kind of an average weekend for them. This car tends to go well at high-speed circuits, but considering it's very similar to last year's Mercedes, could they have cooling issues at this circuit, considering the high temperatures that we're expecting and the tyre degradation? But this did not happen for Racing Point in the second race at Silverstone, which is where Mercedes had some cooling issues. So they should be expected to do reasonable around here, as usual. Obviously, Sergio Perez will be going into this race knowing that it's his last, he could be in his last season in Formula 1, so he may be eager to go out on a high if that is the case. It was this sort of track that they have tended to look a little bit more lackluster around, McLaren have. Silverstone they struggled at, and they also kind of did in Barcelona as well. So I'm not really sure what this weekend holds for them, but I'm not sure they're going to be as quick here as they were in Monza. How quick they are going to be is going to be depending on how quick Mercedes are going to be. I'm going to talk about Mercedes, but if Mercedes have any issues, this sort of track this is a sort of track where Mercedes could have issues and they could potentially capitalise from if that happens, considering how good they were in the second race at Silverstone. So, could be a good weekend for Red Bull after a terrible race in Monza. This is going to be an interesting one. In the second race at Silverstone, we found out their Achilles heel, keeping their tyres alive in hot conditions. And what does this circuit present? Fast track that's going to be very hard on tyres and hot temperatures. This could expose Mercedes' Achilles heel once again, especially as we found out last week that they struggle in dirty air. Mercedes could be kept honest this weekend, although, to be honest, they're still the most likely victors this weekend, I'd say. So, Formula 2 also makes its debut at Mugello this weekend, and the title race is hotting up in Formula 2, with 3 drivers at the front separated by just 9 points, with 4 weekends and 8 races to go. In the driver's standings, Callum Aylott retook the lead of the standings ahead of Mick Schumacher. He's 6 points in front of Mick Schumacher, who has now put himself into title contention after taking that race victory in the first race and another podium in the second race. His consistency has put him into contention, and if Aylott and Schwartzman continue to have their respective issues, that could really pave the way for Mick Schumacher. Mick will be driving his dad's Ferrari car from 2004 just before the race on Sunday, which will be quite an interesting touch. But going in terms of the racing, I'm expecting a lot of tyre degradation in Formula 2 as well. Maybe it could even be a 2-stopper in the first race, and we also could see a sprint race pit stop. That's a sort of race where Robert Schwartzman excels. So could he come back to the top? Callum Aylott seems to be good at keeping up pace whilst managing his tyres. So if So that this could also be a race that he excels. But if they both have issues, they'll both be keen not to have issues because Mick Schumacher is right there to pick up the pieces. But it's set to be an interesting conclusion to this season. And we have a season finale this weekend in the form of the Formula 3 series, which draws to a close going to this weekend in Mugello. And it is going to be an interesting finale, as this season has been hotly contested between Oscar Piastri and Logan Sargent, who have been exchanging the lead so many times this season, and that did not change in a manic Monza weekend. Théo Pourchaire, Liam Lawson, David Beckman and Frederick Vesti have a mathematical chance of winning the title. But I think it is safe to assume that it is going to be between the two at the front, Oscar Piastri and Logan Sargent. And they have both been fairly evenly matched. They both have equal amount of race wins. Oscar Piastri took victory in the first race in Austria, the first race in Austria, the first race won in Austria, and the second race in Barcelona. Whereas Logan Sargent won in the first race at the 70th anniversary race and the second race in Spa. So it's going to be. They have both been fairly evenly matched throughout the season. Both have had similar amount of issues and mistakes this year. So it's going to be interesting to see who is going to take title glory. However, if they clash, could Théo Pourchaire, be close enough to take advantage if they both run into each other, which obviously could happen with two drivers fighting for the title. But it is going to be an interesting weekend to see who is going to finish on top in Formula 3, and both will likely be promoted to Formula 2 next year, but winning the championship is obviously going to gain you a lot of plaudits. So, who will do it? We'll have to see this weekend. And now, to finish things off for this show, it's now time to finish this off with the RaceWeek Moments of the Week. The last weekend's Italian Grand Prix. In 5th place, we have the Slipstream Chaos, which took place in both Formula 1 and Formula 3 throughout the weekend. Formula 2 was kind of exempt from it. Seemingly that car doesn't have such an advantage in a slipstream. But there was a lot of chaos this weekend. But actually kind of less than expected, because everyone was expecting that the Formula 1 qualifying session was going to be chaos. There were a couple of issues in Q1, but after that, then there weren't really any issues. But this was a big part of the weekend. At number 4, we have Mick Schumacher taking the victory in Monza. And seeing a Schumacher winning in Monza brought some nostalgic feels for many Formula 1 fans around the world, seeing a Schumacher win in Monza. It was a great moment that gained quite a lot of headlines. In 3rd place, we have Formula 3 drama. There was drama in the first race, but the second race was extremely dramatic, with so many incidents, so many overtakes. It had everything in it, the second race did. Battling, overtaking, weird collisions. It was just a crazy one. Logan Sargent fighting his way through from the back before colliding with his teammate. You can't really get more crazy than that. And it was an entertaining race to watch. The second biggest moment of the week, I'd have to say, is Lewis out of bounds, pitting under the safety car when the pit lane was closed. This blew the race wide open, and it took so long about speculations to whether he was going to get a penalty. Eventually, the penalty did come, and that is what opened the door for a shock winner. Speaking of which, was it really going to be anything else? Face it, Pierre Gasly has to be the moment of the season so far, rather than moment of the week. Taking his maiden Formula 1 victory. Thoroughly deserved, and it was the ultimate story of redemption. I couldn't see one person on social media or anywhere that was not happy with the result. Pierre Gasly is such a nice guy. He deserves it so much. And many people were absolutely delighted to see him take the victory. I can't remember a more popular winner in Formula 1. And it was a really good moment for Formula 1 as well. So that takes up the number 1 spot. So that is it from the midweek recap. And before I finish off, I have to just inform of a few changes. Firstly, I'm going to announce today that there is a website incoming which will be launched on the week of the Russian Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time. The site is a work in progress, and it will feature a RaceWeek blog, as well as feature this YouTube channel as well, and as well as many more. And much more content which you will see on a later date. And I have decided to rearrange how I'm going to be doing the shows going into on race weekends, as I've had a bit of feedback stating that the shows do tend to drag on a bit, particularly on the Saturday and the Sunday. The Friday show will stay as it is, where it will cover all the action. It will be basically a Friday update, cover all the action from all 3 feeder series. The Saturday and the Sunday show. The Saturday show will be renamed to Qualifying Day Recap, and the Sunday show will be renamed to the Race Review. And that's because on the Saturday and the Sunday, those shows, as I said, have been dragging on a bit. So I have decided that they are going to be mainly focusing on the Formula 1 race and qualifying sessions that took place that day. There will be brief mentions of the feeder series, Formula 2 and Formula 3, where I'll state who won and if there are any changes in the Drivers' Championship, basically the basics. But you may be asking where the Formula 2 and Formula 3 reviews are going to go then. Well, there's going to be a Monday Road to F1 show where I will be covering the Formula 2 and the Formula 3 races over the course of the weekend. Whereas the Saturday and the Sunday show will be more F1 orientated. So, thank you very much for... That's how it is going to go. You can see what time each stream is going to be, or is scheduled to be, because obviously there could be delays in the timetable. But if you look at this channel, you'll see what time it's going to be. Each stream is going to be over the course of the weekend. And also, make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe, and follow us on Twitter as well. And stay tuned for the website, which is going to be coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Friday update. Goodbye.